And my next question would be for Mr. Crusan first, but if anyone else would like to answer it, I certainly would appreciate it. NASA must ensure its investments in and acquisition strategies for deep space habitats are in the taxpayer's best interest. At the same time, a legitimate part of NASA's strategy for deep space habitats is to make investments that facilitate private sector habitats in low Earth orbit and beyond. In Phase 3 of Next Step, NASA will determine its acquisition approach for deep space habitats. What types of acquisition mechanisms should NASA be considering, and what are the benefits and challenges of these respectively, and how should NASA balance the interests of the taxpayer while fostering commercial markets?
So as you note, there are multiple strategies that we could go forward with the final acquisition. In Next Step Phase 2, we require a corporate resource contribution of 30% at a minimum eligibility requirement on that procurement, on that solicitation. That is to foster the dual use of whatever habitation systems for deep space are meant for low Earth orbit. For that kind of skin in the game of those procurements, that also allows us the ability for intellectual property related to commercial endeavors in low Earth orbit to reside with the commercial entities as well. So going forward into the final acquisition, it could be that one choice, we go to a standard cost-plus type contract. Or it could be more of a fixed price on certain elements of the contract where there's high alignment with commercial needs. When we talk about a habitat, it could be a subsystem, the entirety of the system. You can think about service modules or small propulsion buses that have high alignment, say with commercial satellite buses, or the habitat structure being on a fixed price basis. So it's much more granular when you start dividing the various systems that we could approach. So you wouldn't have to have a single contract methodology for the entirety of the system end to end. You could actually have customized acquisition pieces that match best with the commercial potential of those subsystems. And that's what we're looking at trying to achieve out of this Phase 2 effort, is looking at how do you divide that system up in such a way that optimizes the LEO use of components while getting at the deep space needs that we have. And we know there will be incompatibility in a few of those areas, and that's what we're trying to find during the studies.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Crusan. Would anybody else like to add anything there?
I would like to add
Mr.
a
Elbon?
couple
Yes,
points.
sir.
You know, the private-public partnership has worked really well for commercial cargo, and I think we'll find that it'll work really well for commercial crew. It's important, I think, to remember that that mission is a mission we've been doing since we put John Glenn in orbit over 50 years ago. Well understood, the risk posture's understood, the technology's there to do it. And so companies were able, with some very top-level NASA requirements, to develop solutions to do that mission. We're now going beyond low Earth orbit into deep space, the area around the moon, and we haven't done as much there. Yeah. The requirements aren't understood. I think NASA needs to stay in the middle of those requirements because this thing is going to evolve into what goes to Mars. And so it's real important that we look at the differences in the mission and the whole situation and not look at everything as a nail because we got a hammer here.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. And one more question for Mr. Weir. As a writer, you've inspired many with the possibility of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and let's not forget botany. We certainly need young people devoted to STEM fields if we are going to Mars. What recommendations do you have for this committee and for NASA as to how we can continue to inspire people with space exploration and the possibilities of STEM? And these four young ladies sitting in the back, I think, are perfect examples of people who are being inspired. And if you could elaborate on that, I would appreciate it.
Well, I would recommend you keep doing cool stuff. I mean, basically...
I've been trying to do that all my life.
Yeah. Well, basically, people are, especially kids, are motivated by results, by what they see. So ideologies or concepts or things we might do at some point in the future, those are less interesting to kids choosing potential careers than the things that are actually being done. So if you want to see more kids in STEM, do more cool stuff in space.
Good answer. Okay. All right, thank you so much. And now I'd like to recognize the gentlewoman from Maryland.